I believe that tabletop wargaming is best played as a shared narrative between the players. And for me, an important aspect of telling that story has always been the terrain. It can also be an incredibly rewarding aspect of the hobby. If you haven't tried it, I really encourage you to try. It's a lot of fun, and it's not that hard. We love making cool tables full of terrain on this channel. But we often come across the challenge of making it practical as well. What looks good doesn't necessarily translate to being good for gameplay. Then for us, there's also specifically the additional challenge of what works good for camera too, as we make battle report videos. It's not an easy thing, and it's a balance we try really hard to achieve. Sometimes I think we pull it off, and sometimes we don't. More on that later. The next 40K battle report video coming out that we release has another one of these cool custom boards, and we made it from scratch, and we're fairly proud of it. It came out looking pretty good. It's a theme I haven't seen done a lot out there, an underwater battle. I'd love to walk you through how we built it and what went into trying to walk that incredibly tough balance between playability, aesthetics, and video recording. So, in case you're new to the channel, my name is Nicholas. Welcome here, one of the members of Play on Tabletop, a YouTube channel that focuses on telling engaging tabletop miniature battles. We typically edit these multi-hour games into about 40 minutes with a goal to keep them as engaging as possible and as accessible as possible. Because let's face it, we're trying to make a game about static figures being moved around a table for two hours or more interesting to watch. It's not easy. Although we're quite new at it, we've managed to have some real success. And it's been amazing to watch the response. One of our battle reports from about a year ago is actually on track to hit like 1 million views, which is frankly bonkers. So for those of you who have watched it, thank you. We're really just a team of 5 guys that love doing what we're doing and love tabletop wargaming. We wanted to see if we could make something awesome, and I feel like we have. And for most of us, this is still very much a side hobby, but we hope one day to make it more than that. If you want to help us reach that goal and keep us going, simply watching, liking, subscribing, all those things to our video helps. Or if you want to support us more directly, subscribing to our Patreon goes a long way. Purchasing miniatures, gear, and literally keeping the lights on. Additionally, a bonus subscribers get is early access to all of our battles. For instance, this one, it's up there right now that you can watch early, right now. One thing your support, wherever it is comes from, allows us to do is to try to pull off very cool tables of terrain and have some very thematic battles. We've made a number of very cool tables on our channel, I think, but this latest one, I think is probably one of my favorites. A full underwater Tau base. Just waiting for an invading force to try and destroy it. You know, terrain can really set the stage and tell a story without saying a single word. And for a YouTube channel that one of the things we try to do is condense high quality battle reports together, anything we can do to tell the story in a shorter amount of time without directly explaining, it helps us out a lot. An old adage in filmmaking as well is show, don't tell. It's way more effective. And terrain can help you do that. So the story behind this particular board is one of a Tau underwater base being attacked by the evil Space Wolves. It's actually a piece of lore from the old 5th edition Space Wolf Codex. It's a battle called the Battle of, I'm gonna butcher this, Kavarium? The Battle of Kavarium Alpha. The Tau secretly insert themselves into an Imperial-held world and build a mining base underwater. Years go by, decades, before they are discovered by chance, and a Space Wolf task force is assigned to take them out. Now in the lore, it's an utter victory for the Space Wolves, but we'll have to see how this one goes. A lot went into trying to tell this story on the tabletop. Selling the fact that we're underwater is actually surprisingly difficult. The first decision was to try to figure out what type of underwater terrain to model it after. You know, tropical waters look considerably different from, say, the west coast of Canada where we are. In the end, we tried to do something akin to volcanic rock on the coast of Iceland, which influenced the color and texture of the rock. And Tycho did an amazing job building this backdrop here. Building up the back to give the sense of underwater rock formations. And we use like greens and blues in the tone of paint to really give those textures that feel that we needed for underwater. A lot of trips to the dollar store yielded a bunch of aquarium plants to scatter around, such as like these ones. We found some salad bowls for domes and scaled and printed some toppers to go on top. It worked really well. There also was a real desire to try and give this a bit of a 3D feel, so lots of like platforms, and we tried to make verticality in this so that people could play 3D to help with the suspension of disbelief. Like we are underwater, people float and stuff like that. We tried to make some custom rules. We even made some custom parts. We had one of our patrons, thanks Sasha, make some custom parts for my Tau Devilfish and the Crisis suits, like turbines. It looked really cool. We thought about doing snorkels for the wolves, but it was a little too far. And we added some undersea critters, some fish, and some sharks. And it was simply too much fun not to include. We made some special rules for them. All in all, I feel it was a very successful table, and I feel that anyone looking at it can instantly tell that we are underwater. There was some discussion about trying to play it actually underwater, like getting a big giant aquarium or like gloves or something. But you know what? That idea didn't float. Sorry, I'm a dad, can't help it. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of fish jokes for this. Tau, fish jokes, you know, bring them on, I can take them. You know, JT keeps messaging me that the Tau are manatees. Thanks, JT. No, they're not. So the second thing I wanted to talk about terrain is I wanted to go into the question of how do you make a table look nice, play nice, and look nice on camera. A lot of channels probably won't have this challenge because, well, frankly, we use like 6 cameras. There's like 4 stationary cameras, there's a gimbal camera, and there's a camera on a slider as well. And all those cameras have to be placed in such a way that they're pointing pretty much all in the same direction so that they don't get in each other's way. And that means that we kind of have one direction they're facing. So it means like big stuff to the back like this and small stuff to the front. And because you need to know what's going on the table. When we design the table for each game, we try to design it so the bigger stuff is in the back and the small stuff's to the front, so they don't interfere and block the camera. We never randomly place stuff down, it's very intentional. This underwater table actually makes that part super easy. All the big line of sight terrain is see-through. Then there's the playability factor. We need to make sure there's enough of the right type of terrain in the right spaces to be able to play the game effectively. Warhammer 40K is one of the main games we play on the channel, and the terrain rules have changed every single edition. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse, but the current rules require a lot more terrain than previous editions, specifically line of sight blocking terrain, which is great for hiding your army, but provide challenges for us because it's hard to see through. The camera can't physically see through a big line of sight blocking wall. Side note for myself, a lot of line of sight terrain ends up becoming, well, the same. You end up with a lot of ruined buildings, or more specifically, ruined wall corners. They're effective in blocking line of sight, and they're typically cheaper to make, supply, paint, etc. But they do start to look the same. And going to tournaments and events, this is typically all you will see. It does make sense from a competitive mindset. It makes a lot of sense to have those ruined walls. It's easier to do, but it kills my soul a little bit to play 5 straight games with essentially the same terrain. There's only so many city fights I can take. So for our channel, we really try to make each board, each game, unique, visually appealing. We are doing a TV show here. What you see is fairly important. Scatter terrain is a big part of that. It helps a lot. You know, take this more competitive table we recently made for the upcoming Season 4 Championships. A little sneak peek here. Kind of go into that championships for our latest season with a bit more of a competitive play style. And so we're aiming to do more competitive terrain. But we still want it to look nice. So rocks, pebbles, sand, moss, that kind of stuff can really help tell the story and make it look nice. So balancing all these things is very hard, like I said. And like I said at the beginning of the video, we don't always get it right. In my push to tell the story at last year's championship, I think I went probably a little too far into it. Specifically the finale. A lot of you let us know about that. There simply wasn't enough terrain on the table to make it a fair fight. and thus the game was over relatively quickly. And though it looked pretty, it didn't give the best game, and that was my call. I'll own that. I'm sorry. Sorry, Steve. I truly am very sorry. Hopefully this year it's a little more fair. You're Steve, right? Yeah, you're Steve. I believe in Steve! Well, I hope you enjoyed that quick behind the scenes look at what it takes to build a table and what we do, and how we built this table. We do a lot of terrain on this channel, and it's been a pleasure to give you a taste of what goes on in each of our videos, and to be honest, I hope it inspires you the next time you set up terrain to really think about why and how and where you put it. I would really love to see what you come up with. And of course, until we see you next time, play on.